Hey everybody, Pete with Optics for Birding here again. First off, thank you guys for watching the first part of our Learn About Optics section, or the buying guide that we're putting together to help you guys navigate the optics market. This is going to be the second part in our series, and today we're going to be looking at interpupillary distance and eye relief, two very important concepts that you're going to need to know the ins and outs of before you buy any binocular, or if you've picked up a binocular and the view is just not quite working for you, this video might help you navigate that a little bit. So I've got 4 different Zeiss binoculars in front of me with different sizes. We're going to have an 8x25, an 8x40, an 8x42, and a 10x54 at the high end. And I'm going to use these to demonstrate how all those are going to affect the interpupillary distance and the eye relief that I'm talking about. So let's get into it. All right, so we're going to start with interpupillary distance, which just a quick definition for you. It means the distance between your pupils. So always what I would recommend doing is, like, before you look at binoculars, measure the distance between the centers of your pupils so that you know roughly what your interpupillary distance is, or your IPD is. Basically what you're ensuring is that the binoculars can either be splayed out wide enough or compressed inward enough to get both of the barrels perfectly aligned with your pupils. At the end of the day, nothing else is going to matter. The quality of the lenses, the quality of the lens coatings, the build quality, none of that is going to matter if you can't get your eyes lined up with the binoculars, right? Otherwise, you're going to be stuck picking, which side to use, and you've just spent money on 2 lenses when you only need 1. Basically, the reason that that's important is that when you're looking at different binoculars online, interpupillary distance is going to be one of the specs that comes up the most. And you have to look at the minimum and the maximum to make sure that you're within that range so the binoculars can be lined up for you. So I've got 4 different binoculars here to demonstrate that. On the far side here, I've got an 8x25. I've got a 10x54 on the other end, and then I've got an 8x40 and an 8x42 in the middle. All of these are just different Zeiss binoculars that I'm going to use to demonstrate this. So at the very, very tiny end, we've got a pocket size, like 8x25. One of the reasons that I chose this to demonstrate is because most pocket binoculars have the ability to fold in like this. They have 2 hinges so that you can make it as compact as possible. All I'm trying to illustrate here is how close these eyepieces can get to each other. So the minimum interpupillary distance on this guy is only 35 millimeters. That's way narrower than what most people need. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if your pupils are really close together for whatever reason, it just depends on your genetics and the anatomy of your face, there are a lot of people that are forced to use compact binoculars like this because none of the bigger binoculars can get narrow enough for their face. And at the end of the day, like I said, doesn't matter how great these binoculars are, if they can't get narrow enough or wide enough for your pupils, none of that is going to matter. So if you've got like a really narrow interpupillary distance, like say 50 millimeters or below, I hate to break it to you, but just to save you the trouble, there are probably not going to be any larger, like, high quality optics that are going to work for you. So you're going to either have to decide if you want to go with a monocular or a compact binocular so you can get the 2 barrels close enough for your eyes. On the other hand, the maximum interpupillary distance on this guy is only 72 millimeters, whereas some of the larger ones, you're looking at more like 76, 78. So again, if you fall within that interpupillary distance range between 35 and 72 millimeters, which is going to apply to like 99.9% of us, you're not going to have to worry about getting this lined up with your eyes. But say you have an interpupillary distance of 74 millimeters. No matter how much you splay this out, you're not going to be able to get both of the lenses lined up with your pupils at the same time, so this is going to be unusable for you. Good news is that most of the bigger binoculars, that's not going to be an issue, but just keep that in mind. If you're looking at a compact binocular and you've got eyes that are pretty wide set, most of them are not going to be able to splay those barrels out enough to get them lined up with your eyes. So let's look at the other extreme end. So I've got a 10x54 here. This is a roof prism binocular, which means that the barrels are basically just 2 straight parallel lines. The disadvantage that a lot of people run into, though, is that when you're trying to compress the binocular as much as possible, those big objective lenses actually run into each other, and that limits how close these 2 eyepieces can get. So the minimum interpupillary distance on this guy is actually 58 millimeters, which is quite a bit wider than a lot of the other binoculars that we carry. Just keep that in mind. If you've got, a 56 or 54, 52 or lower IPD, that's not going to be compatible with your eyesight because you're not going to be able to splay the barrels in enough to get them to line up with your pupils. So kind of the opposite problem that you would have if your eyes were really wide set and you're using a compact. So there are 2 in the middle here, and these ones have a little bit more generosity when it comes to the interpupillary distance. So this is the Zeiss Victory SF 8x42, and I can splay the barrels out to 76 millimeters, or I can compress them in so that the IPD is only 54. It's not the best we've ever seen, but it's pretty good for a binocular this size just because of the physical limitations. When you're trying to bring those big barrels in, there's only so much you can go before they start running into each other, right? Again, if you've got 54 to 76 millimeters of IPD, you're fine with these. If you're falling outside of that range, you're going to have to look for something else because you're not going to be able to line this up with your eyesight. So until this guy came along, this is the SFL 40 that Zeiss makes. I've got the 8x40 here, also comes in a 10x40, but the same concept will apply. These ones you can actually splay into 52 millimeter IPD. Before this guy came along, anybody that had, you know, a interpupillary distance that was like below 54 millimeters, where a lot of these other ones bottom out, they were forced to use a compact binocular like this so that they could get those barrels splayed in enough. Of course, there's a lot of limitations when it comes to these tiny binoculars like this because those little lenses just don't harness a lot of light. So for a lot of outdoor activities like birding, hunting, you know, just general nature observation where you're not in ideal lighting conditions, that becomes a problem. So for a lot of people with narrow set eyes, before the SFL 40 came along, they were really kind of backed into a corner and forced to get these compact binoculars. But now these, like I said, have 52 millimeters as their minimum IPD. So you can get the barrels pretty close to each other. And that breaking point has actually helped a lot of customers with kind of narrow set eyes, because we've gotten a lot of customers over the years that have, you know, 53 or 52 millimeter IPD, and the SFL is the only premium binocular that they can use now. So don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other like cheap binoculars that can go narrower, but when it came to full size, you know, alpha grade, high end optics, the SFL is now giving them an option to use. So it's not, you know, the very, very cream of the crop like their Victory SF model here, but it's still amazing. I would still use it myself. And for a lot of people that were limited by that interpupillary distance before, all of a sudden they have a great tool that they can use. And you know, there are plenty of people that buy this for other reasons without even worrying about the IPD. So this has become one of our best sellers for many reasons, and that's just one of them. Okay, so now we're going to talk about eye relief, and my glasses are actually going to make a cameo for this. Let's pick those up in a minute, but let's start with the definition of eye relief. So it's the distance behind the binocular lenses where you have to put your eye to get the full field of view. So let me define that a little bit more clearly. Basically, the image on the binocular focuses right around the eye relief point, right? So if you're looking at a spec sheet on a binocular and it says that it's got 18 millimeters of eye relief, that means that your pupil has to be 18 millimeters behind the lens to get the full field of view without getting either, you know, tunnel vision or the shadows in the field of view that you would see if you're too close to the glass. So if you want to experiment with this yourself a little bit, what you can do is, without glasses on, twist these eye cups all the way in and put the binoculars right up against your face. You're going to notice pretty quickly that you're seeing all these shadows popping up in the field of view because you're seeing the insides of the binocular instead of the image that it produces. And then to take the other extreme, if you hold the binoculars way out in front of your face as opposed to jamming them into your eye sockets, obviously you're just going to see those two little peepholes. You're going to see the exopupils way zoomed out, and that means that clearly you're not going to get the full field of view that way, right? Nobody uses binoculars like this. I'm just trying to demonstrate a concept here. What this means is that you're way too far from the glass. You're going to get tunnel vision instead of an actual nice wide field of view so you can spot stuff. So the name of the game, and I'm being a little bit ridiculous just to illustrate this, but you want to make sure that your eyes are at the perfect distance behind the glass so that you get that optimal view. So when you don't have glasses on, your eye is not going to just magically be 18 millimeters behind the glass without some help, right? So most of the binoculars that we carry, just about, they're going to have these twist in and out eye cups so that you can reach the proper eye relief. And most of the ones on the higher end models these days, they're going to have these little detents in the middle so that you can cater that to your, you know, the depth of your eye sockets, the thickness of your glasses, whatever. But again, you know, the key thing to remember is that your eye has to be right at that eye relief distance. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full field of view. You're going to get one of those two extremes that I mentioned. So if you want to experiment with a pair of binoculars yourself, start with the eye cups all the way out. Put them up to your eye, and if you feel like you're getting tunnel vision, try bumping up the eye cup just a little bit. You know, just do it one position at a time so you're not wildly all over the place and you can get a nice view. If you find that you're getting a much more comfortable view and you can see more on the edges of the field of view with the eye cups bumped in a little bit, that just means that that change in position is putting your eye at the proper eye relief. If you're starting with the eye cups all the way bumped out and you see that tunnel vision, that means your eyes are a little bit too far from the glass and you're not actually at the eye relief point, so you need to scoot in a little bit. Now let's start with the opposite. If you've got the eye cups all the way in, obviously you're going to be too close to the glass if you don't have glasses on. So if you want to kind of do this in reverse, you can start by bumping them out a tiny bit. If you see a nice clean view right from the get-go, great. If you don't, probably what you're going to see are some shadows on the sides or the top and bottom of the field of view, and you can just keep bumping these out until you eliminate those. It's going to be different on each pair of binoculars because they have different shapes of eye cups, they have different eye relief themselves. How they actually sit in your eye sockets can be drastically different from one pair to the next. So all of that is worth considering, and that's why you should try to get your hands on some binoculars and try them in person before you know if they're right for you. Now let's give a nod to the crew with glasses. So I'm going to put these on to demonstrate this, but with glasses on, eye relief can be an even bigger consideration because your glasses are going to put your eye a little bit further from the binoculars just to start with, right? You've got that little gap of space between your eye and the lens of the glass. So typically what we do when we have glasses on is you start with the eye cups all the way twisted in. That way you can start and see, does my pupil actually get to the right point with the eye cups all the way twisted in? If you're getting those blackouts that I mentioned before, the little shadows in the field of view, again, what that means is that the glass is too close to your face, and what you should try doing is just bumping out the eye cups a little bit. If you've got glasses on, you probably won't have a ton of room for error. So, again, with some of the better binoculars that we carry, you've got multiple positions where you actually see the eye cup click into place. With ones like this, you kind of have to guess a little bit and make sure that you're twisting them up in sync, but even a millimeter or so can make a huge difference. So I'm going to start by twisting these out just a tad, and for me personally, that makes this particular binocular a much more enjoyable view with my glasses on, because that little bump that I did on the eye cups, it puts my eye far enough away from the glass, and it eliminates the shadows that I would see if I had the eye cups all the way in. So I'm going to use a specific example that I ran into recently with a customer to demonstrate this, but he and I had really different eye socket anatomy, for lack of a better term, and basically what it meant is that his eyes were actually way forward toward the front of the eyebrow, like basically parallel to his eyebrow, versus mine, which are a little bit more receded in my eye socket. So what that meant is that we had to use very, very different placement of the eye cups on certain binoculars. So with my eyes, there are plenty of cases where I can twist in the eye cups because my eye sockets are a little bit deeper, and that gets me close enough to the glass to get that full field of view. Whereas if your eyes are right at the edge of your eyebrow, like basically flat in line with them, you're probably going to have to bump out the eye cups a little bit further so that the glass is further away from your face, because if your eye is closer to the glass by default, just because of the anatomy of your eye sockets, that means that where you put your eye cups and where I might put my eye cups is going to be vastly different. So again, key message here is that you're just trying to bump these in and out, cater the view to your eyes so that you're putting your eye at the right distance to get it right at that eye relief distance behind the glass. So hopefully I've beat this concept to death enough, but if you do have some more questions, you're always welcome to visit our website, opticsforbirding.com. We've got articles on all this stuff. Every binocular that we carry should have an eye relief spec if you wanted to do some research. You're also more than welcome to drop a comment below or just message us on social media if that's how you're seeing this. And of course, as always, if you wanted to chat with us one-on-one, please give us a call at 877-674-2473. Thank you guys again so much for watching. See you next time.